Hey everybody, it's Nicole Bonner and you're listening to Thrive In Chiropractic Podcast, the show that explains how to launch a practice for students and chiropractors who want to become business owners. Today, we're talking about finding a practice location, setting up a website, and what it feels like to be a chiropractic entrepreneur with Dr. Colton O'Brien as we follow his journey from chiropractic student to doctor to business owner. Welcome, Colton.
Hey everyone, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to find out what's been going on this week. And I just want to thank our audience out there for following us and for watching us and just being a part of this journey. And just to bring you guys up to speed, where are we at? We had an amazing holiday, right, Colton? Colton had an awesome holiday. He got married, went on a honeymoon. He had an awesome Christmas. And now he came back, and last week we had like a really fun episode because we went through clips of like our first 6 months of coaching and like everything that we have been working on in regards to opening your dream practice. So that was a funny episode last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was funny. It was just weird to look back and see really how far we've come and just the growth that happens over time.
Right? Like when you were going through the process, like did it feel like you were growing or did it feel like kind of stagnant?
I mean, something I set out like as an intention every day is to grow at least 1% every day. So I guess conceptually, like I know that I'm growing, but in those days, especially like the dog days where it feels really, really hard, it doesn't feel like much growth is happening. But like I know that trial, that resistance that we face does produce growth. So it's cool to see it all come into fruition over time.
Yeah, yeah. And then I'm sure when we look back on those clips, it's like, holy cow, we really did have a lot of growth in a short amount of time.
Hmm.
And then it was so funny because Colton, I told you this a couple weeks ago, but after you got back from break and your honeymoon and Christmas and all that, like you literally vibrate at a different energy level. Like your face looks physically different now than it did like a month ago.
Maybe it's a tan from the beach.
Maybe.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I feel different. I really do. School is such a blessing, but it's like we were talking about stress and hard times just a second ago. It's like it's the ultimate like stressor. Like chiropractic school puts you in it, and it's go go go, and it's really never stopping. And right now, as like a graduated doctor, like I'm working and I'm doing my due diligence, but like there's time for rest and there's time for peace as well. And so it feels different in my body. Like I feel like I'm able to like whenever I feel like I'm able to have a balance now in my life, which is really cool.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, it's so funny because we often talk about, what is happening in here is really going to be an expression of what happens in our physical world.
Mm.
And we also talked a lot about transformation, and a big aha for me when I was chatting with you, a few episodes ago was, you were talking a lot about your transformation as you went through school and transforming from like a college student to a doctor, and now really what it is now that you're getting ready to open a practice, now you're ready to make another transformation, and that transformation is from doctor to entrepreneur or business owner. So those
Mm.
are two very different hats.
Absolutely. And still continuing to step into like the doctor role. If being honest, it's a funny feeling. I felt like my first few weeks of it, or just even being around family in the holidays, people would like jokingly, not jokingly, but they would jokingly say like, "Oh, Dr. O'Brien or Dr. Colton" and stuff like that. And like it felt weird. It was like imposter syndrome a little bit. So
Yeah,
still stepping into like the doctor role is really cool, but putting on the entrepreneur hat at the same time is a lot of fun as well.
that's awesome. So when you were on your honeymoon, did you sign anything Dr. Colton O'Brien?
No, I don't think so. I just laid low. I just, yeah,
What?
I was chilling. I was just toes in the sand, hanging out, eating good food, spending time with Liz. It was beautiful. It was such a blessing.
Nice. Nice. All right, man. So bring us up to speed. Where are you at right now? I like there's been a lot happening. You found a location. What
Hmm.
how did you end up? I know we talked last week that you found a location, you really liked it, you walked into this space and you felt it in your body, and you just felt a bunch of peace come over your body. Is that still the case? What'd you end up doing with that?
Yeah. So to speak to that, I think I need to give like a little bit of a backstory, like as we're catching people up on what's been going on. So yeah, I graduated, and then I got married. So all my focus was on the marriage, and then honeymoon. We get back, and it's time for Christmas, so we spent time with our family for Christmas. Once Christmas was over, we get back home, and it's like, okay, like it's time now, and just I've always said I just want to be like transparent and vulnerable on here. Those like that week between Christmas and New Year's when I was just at home and Liz went back to work, I I was extremely anxious. I kind of worried myself sick and like doubted myself sick, and I just felt like frozen. I felt super stagnant. I'm like, what do I do? Where do I start? Even though I have all these tools, like we started already, but after I was just like I felt like I just felt really like locked up and frozen.
Hmm.
And I spent a lot of time in what I do in those hard times is in in my prayer and in the Word of God, and just like really, really connecting back to like that's home for me. That's where that's where my peace resides. And so returning to that, and then I hung out with friends on New Year's, watched football and everything, and I was like, okay, New Year's Day is like we're gonna go find it. I think the biggest stress was not knowing where I was gonna practice, truly. And that's kind of been eating me up for a while. And so on New Year's Day, I got all my locations mapped out where I was going to go the next day. And I think it was the second. It was a very gloomy day here in Dallas, and I was just like, you know what? I'm turning my worship music on. I'm moving with confidence. I'm moving with peace, and I'm just going to stay in prayer that whole day and wait for like that place where the Lord shows me like, hey, this is where I want you to be, because it's really not about me and where I want. I've always wanted to be where God places me. And so I was driving. I was up in Plano. I was looking around. I was up in Prost. These are just Dallas suburbs. Looking around, and there's an area that I never hadn't really considered, but an area that I really like. And there were a few places over there. I was having terrible luck. None of the places that I was visiting was just like not in my vision for my practice, or just didn't feel good. And then one of my last places of the day, I drove up to Allen, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas. And there's this place, and it's not what I was like really planning to do, like in an office like this. I was kind of looking for like a street view, a place where you walk into and it's just me in there. But I walked into this like kind of looks like a red brick house. It's beautiful. There's like a few other providers in there. And the first thing that happened when I walk in, there's a lady, like a receptionist at the front named Gail, and she's just like the sweetest person ever, just full of energy, full of love. And then I told her I was a chiropractor looking for an office space and that this was on my list. And she just starts jumping up and down and is just like full of excitement. She's like, oh my gosh, I love chiropractic. We need a chiropractor so bad. And I was like, okay, cool. And then she's like, oh, I'll show you around. And we're just talking. I get to just talk about chiropractic, and she's telling me her experience with chiropractic and how much she loves it. And it's really cool. And she showed me a room. It's not huge. I mean, it's probably like 300 square feet, enough for a table, computer, some chairs. But the whole office itself has a waiting room, and the rent is like, you know, in my wheelhouse, a place that I can afford, that I feel really comfortable with. And I just felt like just peace wash over my mind and body. And truly, since then, I've continued to look at a few places, but like my mind always goes back to there. And so I went and met with the owner last week, and he gave me the lease agreement. And the tenant that's in there right now won't be out of there till March 1st, but I plan on signing that here in the next week, and getting into that community, and talking and joining some networking groups and things of that nature. So the wheels are moving right now. So it's really cool. And thanks for listening to me share that. But the major point is just that peace is how I know I'm operating in God's will for my life. So that was really cool.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that with our audience. And there's just so many great takeaways. I truly hope that, you know, you and I spend a lot of time on this podcast to bless other chiropractic students who are going through similar situations. And I truly hope that there are chiropractic students or even new graduates that are watching this podcast and are inspired by your journey, Colton, because there are just so many takeaways from that. And I think, you know, my biggest takeaway from your story for me personally was that, yes, there are systems and yes, there are things that we can put in place, but flexibility is key. You know, flexibility is king. Like, being able to be flexible, like you said, you know, you came into this space and it wasn't really a space that you had intended on. It was like outside of your initial intentions for where you wanted to practice, but yet when you stepped into the space, you knew that that was the space. And so I just think that that was a huge reminder for me, because I have a tendency to be, I'm like really a type A personality, a lot like you, very driven. And so like, I think people like us kind of have a tendency to be like, okay, like this is our path and we're going down this path. And like, sometimes it's like a little bit hard to like be flexible in that path, you know? And so we talk about, you know, you hear a lot of people talk about the bamboo plant, you know, where the bamboo stalk is one of the strongest, you know, stalks in the world, because it has the ability to bend when the wind blows
Mm.
instead of being so rigid where it snaps, you know. And that bendability, you know, being in practice for over 20 years, that bendability is huge, because when we become so rigid that we're afraid to bend or we're afraid to move, then stress settles in. It becomes things become very stressful, right? So that was my takeaway and my learning experience from your story. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool. It's funny how just chiropractic relates to everything, because that's the message we preach, right? To have that bendable, to have that adaptable nervous system, to where we can meet stressors that we're not used to, or stressors that may be overwhelming if we did have a rigid system. But luckily, we have this adaptable intelligence within inside of us, inside of our nervous system, that allows us to meet those outside stressors and adapt and overcome them. And just everything's chiropractic. So it was cool to hear you talk about the bamboo. It's a great analogy.
That's awesome. And then okay, so now, so the old tenant, he leaves that space March 1st, and you're gonna sign your lease, right?
Yeah, well, they leave into February, and I'm moving in March 1st, and probably starting March 1st.
Okay, great, fantastic. So now what we need to do is, I forget exactly what number module it was, but we already like set the foundation for your avatar, your marketing, and your branding and logo. So now we have approximately the exact right amount of time. It's so funny how like God just is so good, and your timing is exactly not your timing, his timing. As really it was his timing. Like your mental
Hmm.
brain was like stressing out, like I haven't found the place, I haven't found the place, right? But his
Hmm.
timing is so perfect, because it leaves us exactly like somewhere between that 6 to 8 week mark, which is what we talked about. You know, we need to start doing, like, to start the practice, you
Hmm.
know, start actually doing the implementation of all of the groundwork and foundation we laid out in the Jumpstart program of Thrive.
Yes.
Um, so we definitely need this week to get on some phone calls, you and I, to start setting that, to start making sure that that's like set up, that's already in place. And really what you need to do is like, if you're, think about a race, okay? When you run a race, you know, you don't stop or you don't slow down right before the finish line, right? You actually go faster right before the finish line. You gain momentum and you gain inertia, like your whole body has this inertia, so that you actually blow past the finish line. You follow me?
Hmm.
Okay. So like March 1st is going to be actually like your metaphorical finish line of the Jumpstart program, of like the actual creation of the practice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the metaphorical finish line. So what does that mean? That means in this next 6 to 8 weeks, what has to happen? We have to increase momentum. We have to increase momentum so that you gain momentum, and by the time end of February, March 1st rolls around, you have patients on the schedule and you're blowing past the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Because
Yeah,
what
that sounds.
most people do when they open a practice is they open the practice, right? And they flip their sign from closed to open, and then they sit at their desk and they're like, what do? I don't have any patients. All right. So you're not going to do that. You're actually going to have patients going into this. So like on March 1st, the day you're open, you're gonna start processing new patients on day one. And then that very next day, that second day that you're open, you're not only going to be processing new patients, but you will also be doing reported findings and start revenuing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you got to gain the momentum so you blow past the metaphoric finish line. Does that make sense?
Yep, that makes perfect sense.
Awesome. Okay, anything else, like do we need to talk about any in the next couple of minutes that we have together? What any other plans that you set in place? I know this is very exciting. You already started opening your bank accounts.
Mm-hmm. Doing that. My LLC is established, and then I'm waiting. My license is in the mail, so it'll be here any day now. So that's gonna be really cool to like actually have my physical, tangible license. And then yeah, so starting to get like systems and intake forms, figuring out my day one, day two. Those are some things that I'm like kind of working on, building my website as well.
Beautiful.
There's a lot of things just in the works, and it's cool because like I get to bounce my focus from place to place, and there's always something to do every day. So it's like it's cool and it's exciting, and I can't wait to really just start putting my hands on people and serving in like my utmost capacity.
Nice. I know. I'm so excited. I have this feeling, and I told you this before. I just had this feeling we're going to be like having this conversation next year, and by next year you're already going to be like, I love my space. It was such a blessing, and it served our community so well, but I need a bigger space already.
That's a plan. That's a plan.
But that's good. Like that's a good problem to have.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's a cool thing about this lease too. It's like it's not rigid. It's like if you outgrow it in 6 months, you outgrow it in 6 months, and
Yeah.
we're okay with that. But it's a year lease. So got a year to be in this place, and then after that we can figure it out.
Yeah. I think your word for the year should be flexibility.
Flexibility. Hey, and physically, I need a little bit more of that too.
Yeah, you better get working out.
Yeah, touch my toes and stuff.
You better.
I'm
All
just kidding.
right. So, okay, Colton. So I'm going to wrap up our podcast for today, but thank you so much for sharing, opening your heart and just being honest and authentic with our audience. And I pray that once again, I just pray that this is a blessing to the people that are going through everything that you've just, been going through for the last 3.5, 4 years of your life. And the fact that you show up every Friday, it's a big deal, Colton. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you as well. It takes two.
Takes two to tango, baby. All
That's
right.
right.
All right, everybody, if you guys are tuning into this, make sure that you guys join our Facebook group. We have a lot of cool stuff. It's called Turning Students and Chiropractors into business owners. It's called Turning Students and Chiropractors into Business Owners. We put a lot of stuff up on that page, and there is a community of almost 400 people now that join in and share a lot of stuff, a lot of their experiences, anywhere from students to chiropractors who have been in the profession practicing for decades are in that group. So take advantage of your resources, students, take advantage of your resources, new doctors, hop in that group, start some questions, start some dialogue, because there are some amazing chiropractors that are part of that group, and they're just kind of like, it's crickets. They're just kind of being quiet. But these guys I know have a heart for servitude, and they have a heart for our profession, and they have a heart for sharing a lot of stuff with you guys. So the more you guys engage with us doctors who have been doing this for 2 or 3 or even 4 decades, the more you're going to get out of it. So make sure you join our group, turning students and chiropractors into business owners. So we are out of time for today. Thrive in Chiropractic will be back again next week with Dr. Colton O'Brien. Colton, can you tell everyone how they can find you?
Yeah, to catch the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram at Dr. Colton O'Brien, or also my business account at Trinity Life Chiropractic. On Facebook, you can find me at Trinity Life Chiropractic, and our official website is trinitylifechiro.com.
That's awesome. Colton, as always, thank you for sharing your story with me and our audience. If you'd like to find out more about any of the programs Thrive offers, visit our website at thrivechirocoaching.com to join my email list and find extra resources and info.